My name is Kristen Kirkby, and I'm a fisheries biologist for a small nonprofit fisheries enhancement group called Cascade Fisheries. And we work to restore and conserve native fish in north central Washington. We do that through river restoration and education and outreach, and I am fortunate enough to be able to do that in the Medhow, where I'm also a sister and an aunt and a very grateful friend. I'm a hockey player and a skier, aspiring at least, both, and a boater and anything else that takes me outside exploring. And a proponent for salmon and whitefish and bull trout and lamprey and all of the native, some might erroneously say slightly less charismatic piscifauna in our rivers, and I'm a lover of the Medhow. Growing up in the Pacific Northwest, caring about salmon, being interested in them, it's just kind of a part of you growing up here. But I interned with the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation when I was at Whitman College in Walla Walla, and they had just done work with an irrigation district and some nonprofits to restore flow to that river that had been gone for many years. And after that work, they reintroduced spring Chinook to the basin, which is what we did with our coho salmon here. They were locally extirpated, so they were locally extinct and reintroduced. And so I got to spend time walking in and along the Walla Walla River, and just like bearing witness to these big, beautiful, amazing fish coming back to somewhere that they'd lived for thousands of years and then had been sort of kicked out of, for decades. And as if their life history isn't already compelling enough, being so tied to a place and then taking this epic journey across so many different landscapes, and then coming all the way back home. And I think that just pulled me and continues to pull me, and so does the idea of sort of helping to undo some wrongs that have been done to that community. And then also for fisheries, I don't know if you put a mask and snorkel on, but putting your face underwater, it is just a totally different world. And we're really lucky in the Medhow to have clear water, so we can look down from the pedestrian bridge and look down from our boats and see these fish in the river. But it's different, it's flatter, and it's sort of two-dimensional. And when you put a mask on and you feel that cold water and you feel like the push of the current moving you wherever it wants to take you, and open your eyes and you see this neighborhood that's, vibrant and has been sort of living and thriving in that place for so many more generations than we can think about, and, has been altered and threatened just in the last 150 years, and that we have the possibility of getting engaged to sort of restore that and ensure that it continues on for, thousands more. I moved here about 10 years ago, just based on looking at a map. I mean, I had been here as a child a little bit, but it's small towns and it's ringed by public land, and there's unroaded wilderness, and there are undammed rivers, and there's, remnants of wildness still in this place. And I came here and I explored that and found it, and, it's amazing, the places in our watershed, exploring the Pasayten and the North Cascades. But, of course, what I didn't expect to find or even know to look for, I think as a seasonal worker bouncing around with a few months here and there, no surprise probably to anybody, but I didn't think about community and how important that was. And I think this place is just full of strong and thoughtful and caring people that are active and that engage, and I think that's really, among so many other things, what makes it so special. And I just see that everywhere, in neighbors showing up to help in times of loss, or just the challenging times that we all face, at different points in our lives, and also showing up to help celebrate the good times, which I think is equally important. Coming together to, rallying to say no to outside influences that might alter things or bring in, unwanted development or explore mineral rights where they shouldn't be. Things that might compromise sort of the integrity of both the social and the ecological fabric of our community, which, are really essentially the same thing when you think about it. And also coming together to say yes to super important things too, to say yes to returning some small part of a stolen homeland, to say yes to protecting 1,200 acres of forest and agricultural lands. That's all so just amazing, and I just think this place takes care of its own in the broadest sense of that word, and I feel super lucky to have some small part in being that own. You asked me about how working on rivers has sort of shaped my approach to living in community or experience with that, and I think it does. I think it can't not. I mean, I think about rivers in all kinds of different ways. I think of them, when we let them, as being these wild creatures, and we've diminished that, and we've restricted the way that they connect with the landscape, the way that they move across the landscape, by hardening them or straightening them or sort of confining them to these shapes that better meet our needs for development. But they continue to sustain us, and they are sort of these just great examples of interconnectedness. And you can think about that like the ties in a food web, whether that's different life stages of insects that pull fish in different parts of their habitat, or population responses to changes. You can think about it as, being tied by flow, when a tree falls in the river and changes the way that river pushes around and creates a pool and encourages a meander or pushes it across onto a floodplain to engage in that way. And I think, we spend a lot of time in the restoration world thinking about connectivity, which is so important from both the social and ecological side of things. And that idea of connectivity, like we have tributaries like Brush Creek in the Upper Methow is cold and small and steep and fast, and that is directly connected to the Lower Methow, which is broad and slow and warmer. Those things are tied together, those places are tied together directly by the water that, sort of unites our entire watershed. And the connections go beyond just our basin. The salmon that hatch in our streams tie us directly to the Columbia River, to the estuary, to the North Pacific, where they've journeyed hundreds of miles to get there to feed seals and whales and other human communities. And if they're lucky, and if we're lucky, to put on a bunch of pounds of ocean nutrients, to carry all those hundreds of miles back up through all kinds of different challenges and barriers, both natural and human caused, and bring those resources back to the Twift, to the Chewuk, to the lovely Lost River, and feed plants and animals and the community, that relies on that water, all pulled together. And I think just thinking about community in that same way, like, it's impossible not to see some of those connections when you're working on a river, and think about more broadly the ways that pulling on one thing pulls on another, and how we affect creatures and people, environments that we don't always necessarily think about, and how amazing that is too, the potential there for positive impact. And I guess like thinking about paying attention and listening and asking questions of each other and of the landscape, and just trying our hardest to be kind, and focusing on a concept of stewardship, stewardship for our relationships to other people and our relationships to place, because we all need to be taken care of, and we all need to take care of something too. And I think, we all benefit from the invitation to take care of something, and this place, I think, just like actively gives you that invitation every day. So just an opportunity to say yes to.